Good afternoon and welcome everyone to this Cultural Policy Summit, to which I would like to extend a warm welcome to everyone who has joined us. Great you are with us this afternoon. My name is Shelly Kupferberg. I'm a freelance journalist and moderator based in Berlin, moderating, presenting mainly programs within German public radio such as Deutschlandfunk Kultur and RBB Kultur. And I'm very excited actually about today's exchange, where we want to focus on cultural professionals in Europe and think about the situation, better framework conditions and new forms of cooperation in the digital spaces. This online conference, it joins a series of events dealing with the issues of solidarity as well and culture in Europe. Well, UNIC, the European network of organizations engaging in cultural relations from all EU member states, is currently carrying out the project European Spaces of Culture on the initiative of the EU Commission. European Spaces of Culture is testing innovative collaboration models in cultural relations between European and local partner organizations in countries outside the European Union. An open call is still open until June 13th, with the goal of redefine the idea of what European culture relations can be. And in March, the Goethe-Institut in Europe, in partnership with New Kinko, launched the Europe-wide dialogue platform called Soli Dialogues to discuss whether solidarity can act as an antidote to populism. Very significant and very important topic as well, as we know. Voices of Culture is a structured dialogue between the European Commission and the cultural sector. In an increasingly globalized world, the European Commission aims to promote the role and place of culture. And the project Voices of Culture, implemented by the Goethe-Institut, aims to improve actually communication between civic society actors and policymakers in the field of culture. To this end, a digital brainstorming meeting was held just yesterday and the day before, which will be rounded off by a dialogue meeting in June. So far, some information by now. Please notice we will have some changes within the program because some politicians in this extraordinary time of pandemic issues, they have to take part at another appointment here or there. But I think every one of us can understand this. What usually makes a conference so nice and interesting are, of course, the breaks and the conversations in between, the opportunity actually to talk to each other, to get to know each other. Unfortunately, that's a bit more difficult in those days, in digital days, but we've set up a digital interactive networking lounge for everyone during the breaks and after this summit. Anyone who wants can meet there. A big thank you, first of all, to all those who make this large-scale task possible today, and to all the institutions that got this summit off the ground. These are the Goethe-Institut, das Progressive Zentrum, the Progressive Center in English, and the German Foreign Office. And first of all, I would like to ask Michel Müntefering, Minister of State at the Federal Foreign Office here in Berlin, to welcome us to the virtual podium. Michel Müntefering, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Shelly. Ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Recently, the headline of a big newspaper read, "A picture on the wall that was yesterday. These days, people invest in digital artworks." The article was about the record price reached for a digital collage made up of 5,000 small images. A famous auction house obtained an incredible $69 million, not for a hand-painted picture, but for a data file. A technology with 3 letters makes this possible. NFT. It stands for fungible token. It turns a digital work into an authentic and unique item. What might be a sensational headline today can turn out to be routine tomorrow. The digital transformation of our society is advancing at an incredible speed. One development leads to the next. Cultural professionals and cultural policymakers need to face these changes because they have a simple choice to make, either shaping digital developments or being shaped by them. We have organized this conference today because we want to be shapers, because we don't want to be always running to catch up with developments, but to seize the opportunities presented by the digital transformation, because Europe needs to play an active role in developing digital cultural space. We don't have to produce digital art, but we shouldn't just be staring at the walls either. However impressive the masterpieces hanging there may be. Our goal is clear. We must understand Europe as a social space built on solidarity, a space which fosters democratic exchange and shapes the future. The digital space is one means of achieving this, even though we can't yet fully predict what form it will take. Ladies and gentlemen, 1 year ago, Dario, Franceschini, José, Manuel, Rodríguez, Uribes and I pointed out the challenges of the digital transformation. But we also stressed the opportunities of this transformation for cultural exchange in Europe. This was promoted by the COVID-19 crisis. At that point, we had no idea how long we would have to do without theater, cinema, festivals. For almost 1 year now, the pandemic has brought cultural life as we know it almost to a stop. And this year has been tough for the cultural scene, and it still is. But it has also given many new impulses. Theaters have started to stream their performances. Authors are doing their readings from their own sofas. I myself was in South Sudan and Rwanda this week, virtually and with no emissions. All this will never be able of replacing the experience of personal interaction, because society needs art and art needs society. But I am convinced much of what we are trying out now will last. Hybrid formats will become the new additive normal, and digital transformation will not only change the distribution of art and culture, it will also change how art is created. That will all have a huge impact on copyright, on the sphere of influence of art, and of course on the question of how artists can earn a living from their work. It was therefore very important to me that we jointly addressed this issue during Germany's presidency of the Council of the European Union. An intensive exchange took place last year. Today we want to discuss and elaborate on the numerous initiatives and ideas that this exchange generated. I am therefore particularly delighted that so many high-ranking guests have accepted the invitation to today's event. I would like to take this opportunity to express my heartfelt thanks to Minister Grassa, Francesa, Minister Rosalind Bachelot, Narke and Sabine Verheyen, representing the European Parliament. Minister Francesa unfortunately can't be present today because of the Council of Ministers, as we just heard. But ladies and gentlemen, I am convinced that we need a pan-European digital cultural space, because individual states alone will not be able to overcome the challenges of the digital transformation. As the world's largest economic area, we have an influence that we can only exert by joining forces. Yet, A European digital cultural space will also help us to cultivate more exchange, partnership, cooperation in Europe and beyond. It is a vital key to creating a common European public and cultural space. So let us seize the chance to strengthen cultural ownership, particularly among young people, even beyond the algorithms in social media feeds. And let us ensure that it generates a sense of community. Unity in diversity must also be the motto of the EU in the digital space, rather than hatred and hate speech. However, to achieve this, we need to prepare the ground and grasp the opportunity now. There has never been a better time to do so. The conference on the future of Europe begins on 9th of May, and the European Spaces of Culture initiative, which UNIC is conducting on behalf of the EU Commission, provides a sound, substantive basis on which we can build. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, it is in our own interest to create a digital cultural space in Europe which serves the general public and not a few powerful companies. It must be a space which fulfills a public demand for information and education, and which is run by public funding. Many internet companies help to make cultural services available to broad sections of society, yet what we need is clear rules. That includes a Europe-wide copyright law. We need ways to fight hate speech, propaganda, disinformation. We need to prevent the creation of a great market power that damages innovation and competition. We need to protect data. We need to develop digital skills in Europe so that we can make the most of all these opportunities. And last but not least, we ourselves need to promote and support the development of relevant public platforms. The concept of an Italian platform, which Minister Franceschini is pursuing, is remarkable because it combines a cultural policy approach with the creative economic potential of art and culture. I myself, I'm pursuing a very similar idea at European level, a European platform that brings together existing initiatives and concepts. The goal is to make Europe's cultural diversity visible, also in the digital sphere, both within and outside Europe. I'm convinced such a platform can and should be more than a mere content-based platform. It should make networking possible so that something new can evolve. It should facilitate discourse and debate. It should be a true European cultural space. And that is why it was important to me to invite our European partners right up to the Commission and the European Parliament to discuss this idea and to begin developing a prototype. Ladies and gentlemen, digital and analog space cannot be separated. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen how so-called real life has shifted to the virtual sphere, but this development is not a one-way street. It can also go in the other direction. Content produced in a virtual context shapes opinions in real life. Digital opportunities can transform distribution channels, market power, and access. Algorithm can sort out successful from unsuccessful artists. They create facts, and technology can even change our understanding of art. But also, art can change the understanding of ourselves. Welcome to the conference. Thank you for your attention, and I'm looking forward to our discussions now.
Thank you so much, Ministry. Michel Müntefering, and you just mentioned the Spanish Minister of Culture and Sport, José Manuel Rodríguez Uribes. He also sent us a video message.
Estimados compañeros, compañeras, hace aproximadamente un año, por estas fechas, mi colega, la ministra de Cultura alemana, y mi colega, el ministro de Cultura italiano, y yo mismo, nos preguntábamos ante la opinión pública, en un artículo que compartimos, ¿Cuánto tiempo podríamos soportar la limitación de los contactos personales? Si la solidaridad le iba a ganar la batalla al egoísmo, y cómo, en definitiva, la cultura, como derecho, como industria, como valor, me gusta subrayar las tres dimensiones, sobreviviría, incluso se haría más fuerte después de esta pandemia. Durante estos largos meses hemos experimentado sucesivos vaivenes que nos han reafirmado en la creencia, en la convicción, de que la cultura es un componente esencial de nuestra sociedad, de nuestro sistema económico y, sin duda alguna, de nuestras vidas, como individuos, como sociedad, como colectivo. Ahora que parece que atisbamos el fin de la crisis, en gran parte gracias a las vacunas, vemos la luz al final del túnel, pero sin duda con el esfuerzo y sacrificio de todos, enorme, sabemos que la vida no va a ser como era antes de la COVID-19. Nuestra sociedad y nuestra economía y nuestro modo de vida van a ser distintos en muchos aspectos. En algunos probablemente serán mejores, habremos aprendido cosas. Para ello tenemos que asegurarnos de que el mundo de la cultura, este engranaje complejo que da sentido a nuestras vidas, que alimenta nuestro espíritu, va a salir adelante e incluso va a mejorar y a ser más fuerte. Por eso, de cara a los próximos meses, debemos seguir haciendo posible que los espectáculos culturales sigan vivos, sean accesibles, aun cuando haya ciertas restricciones obligatorias que debamos cumplir. Y esto es porque hemos demostrado que con responsabilidad, con trabajo, la cultura puede ser segura, es segura, y por tanto debe seguir siéndolo. Por otra parte, a nadie se le escapa que estamos ante un cambio de paradigma que nos encamina hacia un nuevo modelo del sector cultural que será híbrido, con la combinación de actividades experienciales y virtuales. Por ello es básico que logremos realizar una transición exitosa hacia la digitalización del sector y hacia la utilización óptima de las plataformas online de contenidos culturales. Así se conseguirá, más allá de la mera supervivencia del sector, que los creadores puedan investigar y puedan desarrollar nuevas técnicas artísticas que a su vez desemboquen en la configuración de un nuevo abanico de acciones y actividades culturales, poniendo al alcance de las audiencias europeas y globales nuevas formas de disfrute y de aprendizaje cultural. Además, para que este modelo ideal, pero necesario, pueda ser una realidad en el medio plazo, es necesario apoyar y proteger a los artistas y creadores culturales, a aquellos profesionales del sector que han realizado un esfuerzo ingente por superar los efectos de la pandemia sin dejar de lado su compromiso con la sociedad, creando contenidos, reinventándose y animando el alma propia y ajena a través de su trabajo y dedicación. La cultura es un derecho de los ciudadanos, pero también lo es de los creadores y de los artistas. Por ello debemos seguir avanzando en el camino de lograr el marco jurídico más adecuado para asegurar y proteger a todos los profesionales de la cultura, para que vean que, al igual que ellos no han dejado de lado a la sociedad en los momentos más complejos, nosotros nos acordamos también de su situación, sus sociedades tampoco los van a dejar de lado, dándoles visibilidad, reconocimiento y seguridad jurídica. Por todas estas razones, las administraciones públicas, los responsables políticos, estamos obligados a fomentar la reflexión sobre qué tipo de ciudadanía cultural queremos y a apoyar el sector en todas las transformaciones que sean necesarias. Por último, quiero finalizar mi intervención agradeciendo especialmente a los organizadores la celebración de este encuentro para poder contribuir con ideas y reflexiones a identificar las prioridades y oportunidades que tiene por delante el sector cultural. Ya no solo para pensar en su resiliencia, sino para hablar de su empuje, de su recuperación, de sus fortalezas, de su valor cuantitativo y cualitativo y de su éxito futuro en un nuevo contexto global, universal. Porque si logramos el éxito de la cultura, habremos conseguido también el éxito de nuestra sociedad, derechos, industria y valor, en la síntesis en la que quiero insistir. Muchas gracias.
Well, some basic thoughts and remarks from Spanish Minister José Manuel Rodríguez Uribes, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I already mentioned this summit has been organized by das Progressive Zentrum and Goethe-Institut. From both institutions we hear some welcome words. First from Johannes Ebert, Secretary General of Goethe-Institut, and immediately afterwards from Dominic Schwickert, Executive Director of das Progressive Zentrum.
Dear Minister of State Michel Müntefering, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you, the panel speakers and participants, cultural politicians, experts, and cultural workers from all over Europe. A very warm welcome to the online conference Europe Takes Part, Summit on European Cultural Politics and New Digital Solutions. A conference which has been organized by the Berlin think tank Das Progressive Zentrum together with the Goethe-Institut, under the patronage of the Minister of State for International Cultural Policy, Michel Müntefering. I'm very pleased to open together with our partners today's event, which aims to investigate the important questions of what significance is ascribed to culture in our European societies. It also asks what political measures are required to support the European art and cultural scene and what role digital spaces can play in this. Not least because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the cultural sector, artists and cultural workers are under enormous pressure. Precarious and shrinking spaces for art and culture have long been observed, not only in Europe, and have experienced a new explosiveness due to the current erosion of cultural activities caused by the pandemic. The Goethe-Institut supports cultural workers and artists. It creates platforms for European exchange and encounters, also in the digital space, through offers of exchange, advice, qualification and networking. One example of this is the Freiraum project. Here the Goethe-Institutes in Europe over the last years have brought together actors from culture, science and civil society from 40 European cities. They discussed the questions of what freedom is today in Europe, where it is in danger and how we can strengthen it. Furthermore, the Goethe-Institut has also launched a digital cultural calendar, Kulturama Digital. Creatives, artists and cultural institutions from all sectors and from all over the world can upload their digital cultural offers and thus make them accessible to an international audience. Another digital example is the European platform Creatives Unite, supported by the EU Commission. It provides valuable information and networking opportunities for the European cultural sector. Digital solutions also represent a great opportunity to strengthen the cultural scene across physical and national borders. We therefore very much welcome the move by Minister Müntefering, who, together with her European colleagues Dario Franceschini from Italy and José Manuel Rodríguez Uribes from Spain, strive to further develop and support digital forms in international cultural exchange. One component of this is this summit, in which cultural and creative workers as well as selected experts are invited to a discussion with cultural politicians from all over Europe. At this point, I would like to thank the Progressive Zentrum for the excellent cooperation. My thanks also go to my colleagues from the visitor program of the Goethe-Institut who have organized the event on the Goethe-Institut side. I now wish you many interesting conversations, new inspiration and courageous ideas for the diverse and precious culture in Europe. Thank you.
Yeah, on behalf of Das Progressive Zentrum, also a very warm welcome to all of you. We are still in the middle of the corona crisis, and for more than a year we have been confronted with rules that determine times and reasons to leave home, schedules that determine vaccination order, and agreements that say who is systemically relevant and who is not. After a year of state of emergencies, the impact of those rules on our daily life has been striking. Whereas before the pandemic, the bureaucratic language was often not taken too seriously, now it creates a tough materialistic reality. What is noted as a leisure activity, as recreational, as entertainment is often obviously less prioritized during the pandemic. Arts and culture practitioners personally experience the consequences of these states of emergency. Their livelihoods are at best put on hold, at worst threatened. This is not only harmful to them, but also to society at large. Also, arts and culture are an important economic factor in Europe. Let's take Germany as an example. Over 1.2 million workers are active in the cultural and creative industries. With more than 3% of Germany's GDP, the cultural and creative industries are behind the automobile sector, what in Germany is a tough thing to beat. But the sector outperforms other important sectors such as the chemical industry, the energy sector, or the financial service sector. And while this sector of arts and culture is enormous, and though it can surely not be considered homogeneous in any way, it is on us as societies to think about whether these brilliant forms of expression, of provocations and enjoyment are in fact just only leisure, recreation and entertainment to us, or if this is to be seen as fundamental importance to the vibrance of our society, to the vibrance of our liberal democracies. With this project, European Takes Part, we want to contribute to this and give impetus and attention to Europe's cultural political discourses, its questions and its perspectives. We see it as our role as Think and Do Tank in offering a space for critical political debates, for preaching the situation on the ground and the political reality, and also create a space for actually collaborating new ideas on how to jointly change things for the better. At today's conference, we will hear from several perspectives about today's challenges and tomorrow's ideas on how to increase the European cooperation on cultural policies. And I'm very thankful for the good partnership with the Goethe-Institut and the trustful support of the Federal Foreign Office, especially by Minister of State Michael Müntefering, by Director General Andreas Görgen, in setting up this conference and the overall process. Together, and I'm convinced, together with many European counterparts and a broad range of practitioners from arts and culture from all over Europe, this really is a strong political message. And more than that, it's a source of inspiration and a promising pan-European starting point. And by saying that, thank you all for taking part, taking your valuable time with us today. And back to you, Shelly Kupferberg.
Thank you, Dominic Schwickert. Let me just drop a few brief information on the formats of today's summit. During this afternoon, we will meet within panels in a large round, of course. These will be moderated exchanges between cultural practitioners, between policymakers, experts, where the audience means you can, of course, is invited to ask questions and make comments, sharing thoughts and experiences within the chat. And in between, we will have so-called deep dives to discuss some aspects and different questions in more detail and in smaller rounds. You are welcome to decide spontaneously, actually, in which virtual space and topic you would like to join. So let's start now with panel number 1, titled Approaches to a Common European Cultural Policy, Utopia or Within Reach. And I'm very pleased to welcome 2 politicians to join us in this conversation. You can see them already on the screen. We have Sabine Verheyen. She's chairperson of the Committee on Culture and Education of the European Parliament. Hello, Sabine Verheyen. We have Viviane Hoffmann here, Deputy Director General, Directorate General Education, Youth, Sports and Culture. And we have 2 experts with us, political scientist Dr. Michael Wimmer and artist Abdullah Minyawi. Hello to everyone at this point. Some brief words about Abdullah Minyawi. He is an Egyptian artist, mainly known as a writer, as a chanter, as a composer and actor who performed around the world. Besides this work in art, he has been involved politically since the Arab Spring, as his poetry was spread all around the region. As a change maker, the artist was chosen by the European Parliament in Strasbourg as one of 3 speakers based in Schengen to present France, Egypt and himself to give a speech about today's crucial challenges and to give a motivational speech. And Dr. Michael Wimmer is the founder and now head of the board of EduCult. In 2011, he habilitated on cultural policy research at the University of Applied Arts in Vienna, where he teaches, among others, courses in cultural and educational policy issues. Michael Wimmer has worked for the Council of Europe, for UNESCO, as well as for the European Commission. Everybody again, hello and welcome. First question goes to Sabine Verheyen. A common European culture policy, utopia or within reach?
I think we need both a common European cultural policy, but also the diversity we have through the competences of each member state. But to combine, to bring these 2 aspects together, to create a common European space of diverse cultural structures, of really a rich cultural environment, I think that is the most important issue. And we recognize that also during the pandemic, how important this is to have, on the one hand, the common support, the exchange on the European level, the support programs for the cultural sector, because also many other European economical sectors are strictly depending also on culture. And culture is that what brings us together also as Europeans, and that is also a factor in our societies we should not forget. And I always remember the sentence of Robert Schuman, who said, if I would start the European Union from new, he would start with culture and education, because he saw that in the end, if we don't bring together people on via cultural exchange or educational exchange, and bring up a common identity in addition to the own national, regional, personal identity, also a pan-European or a European identity, I think it will become difficult really to create a united Europe.
Mm-hmm. So let's ask Viviane Hoffmann, Mrs. Hoffmann, when we talk about European cultural policy, where do we stand right now? What would you say?
Thank you very much. Well, I would also say we very much work on the basis of the principle united in diversity, and the strength that comes from both unity and from diversity are certainly crucial, especially now in these testing times of COVID and the huge impact the crisis has on culture. And there are many common challenges, and we need to work more closely together than ever to address them. With all the partners, European institutions, member states, cultural, creative sectors, and the stakeholders in the broadest sense. Now, where do we stand? We cooperate in many different forms together with all the different partners in dialogues, projects, pan-European networks, platforms, expert groups, but also further reaching initiatives like European Capitals of Culture or the Creatives Unite platform, for instance. Now, at the same time, while we work in the respect of subsidiarity, at the EU level, we are very much aligned when it comes to main ambitions for culture in policy making and support for the cultural and creative sectors through the EU level instruments and actions. And on topics, we all agree the vital topic for now is recovery. And I think this is the main topic, and other topics that go together with coming out of this crisis resilient, stronger, and also in a good position to adjust to the digital and to the green transitions. Now, indeed, when we look at the figures in last year, the cultural and creative sectors have lost 31% of their revenues. And those who are particularly hit were the performing arts and the music, who lost 90% and respectively 76% of their turnover compared to the year before. So this is really something that we want to focus on, and there are funding opportunities at EU level, as you know. And I will also want to underline that culture has shown how crucial it is for our well-being during this crisis, and the crucial importance to continue supporting the cultural and creative sectors for many things that they bring to society, but also for what they bring to social inclusion and social cohesion. So I would stop here for now, but I'm sure that there are many more things to say about the different aspects that are relevant now in this particular moment in time, where in fact we begin a new chapter.
Yes, absolutely. You have already talked about those many challenges. There are still more, as we heard Abdullah Minyawi, as a cultural worker who knows actually Egyptian cultural scenes and the European ones. How do you perceive cultural policy in Europe? What kind of character does it have for you?
Hello everyone, I'm pleased to be part of this, and I have good feeling about each word spent here. Thank you, I'm grateful to be part of this. For me, Europe is a central lighthouse for the cultural movement today. It's advanced and it's always in progress, so it's natural what we live today. There are many respectful categories and it's really polymorphic. There is also a level of awareness and a level of respect and importance for the definition of art, for culture and art. There is a place for differences. There is a demand for what's new and original all the time, for both the institutional and the public view. Culture in Europe comes with openness, which keeps a pace with the crucial challenges of today. So I think it's natural, and I stay optimistic and hopeful about it.
Which is great. Dear Abdullah, you talked about the awareness and the respect in terms of culture, of arts within Europe. Let's see what Michael Wimmer adds to this as a long-time observer. Michael Wimmer and policy expert. How do you see actually the role of European cultural policy at the moment, and what would be your vision from an expert's point of view?
Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk with you, and welcome. I hope I am not the bad guy in that game when I say that within the cultural sector there is a big frustration, and it was already pointed out that the professional situation for the majority of artists and cultural workers is really precarious. And they find cultural policy on national level, but also on European level, quite on the margins, and fear that there is a big loss of not only appearance, but of influence in the further development of the European communities. Altogether, we now see, like in a burning glass, the problems that are much longer than with the start of the pandemic, and we see a particular lack of cultural policy on European level. It was already spoken about the principle of subsidiarity and others. When it's now about recovery, I would like to give two examples. One is from my small country, Austria, after the Second World War, when it was devastated and full of influence of dictatorship. It lay down. And there was a very strong cultural policy approach. And what we now experience, this was a huge success story of recovery of Austria as a player, not only in the European, but in the international game. I see similarities with the big New Deal project of Franklin Roosevelt, which gave the chance of recovery, not only jobs for artists, but changing the whole society. And I hope at least a little bit when I hear the messages of Madame van der Leyen to develop something like a European Bauhaus initiative, where artists are involved to work together with scientists, with engineers, but to get rid of this isolated situation on the margins. And we have then Sunday speeches about the importance of arts and culture, but in reality, the majority of the artists experienced in these days that they are quite irrelevant when it comes to the material basis.
Let me just interrupt on this point, because I think it's very important what you mentioned. Thank you for this at this point, because we're going to talk about the situation, the particular situation of artists within the pandemic a bit more soon. And I would like to have a small input of everyone, or just a small thought of everyone at this point about the question how to recover, and at the same time to make a step forward in terms of European cultural politics. What do you see, well, the points we have to move right now? Sabine Verheyen, what do you think?
Yes, I think first I would like to contradict a little bit that on the European level we are not doing a lot. As much as we can do, we do. We nearly doubled the funding of the Creative Europe program, which was a big fight with the member states who did not want to do that at the beginning. We also asked in the European Parliament for a minimum part of the recovery funds of at a minimum 2 up to 4%, like it is the value in the GDP of the European Union of the cultural and creative sectors. That we did not reach that is also a question if member states are willing to invest in cultural in the cultural industries, or in the cultural scene or not. We are, as Parliament, looking very strictly to how the implementing programs for the recovery funds are set up by the member states. And if the cultural part, the cultural sector, is part of this recovery ideas and discovery plans in the member states.
Actually, same question to Viviane Hoffmann. What do you think? What do we need right now to implement a bit more secureness also to artists and cultural workers, and, by the way, to implement a European cultural policy?
I would also like to stress what Mrs. Verheyen already said, that we very much hope that the cultural sector will benefit from the recovery fund. And on funding, I would also like to say that now we have different financial instruments, including the EU Recovery and Resilience Facility, indeed, and also the EU's long-term budget for 21-27 and Next Generation EU. So this is the temporary instrument which is designed to boost the recovery, and this is the largest stimulus package ever financed through the European Union budget of 1.8 trillion. So there are several funding instruments which are also relevant, which are the European Structural and Investment Fund, Horizon Europe, Digital Europe, and of course, as Mrs. Verheyen mentioned, the Creative Europe program, which indeed has been substantially increased to a total of 2.4 billion euro. So this money will support creatives and creators on the ground. And in addition, of course, to this, we will also boost our policy dialogue with the member states and with the sector themselves. And what is crucial here is indeed that we exchange information, that we share good practices, and it was mentioned already before, create the Creatives Unite platform, for instance, is one of the spaces where we want also to listen to what the sector has to tell us, because we very much need to be in a listening mode at this moment in time and make sure that what we can offer is channeled in the most optimal way towards the needs on the ground.
Thank you, Viviane Hoffmann. So let's listen right now to Abdullah Minyawi, and let's ask him, what expectations do you have, Abdullah Minyawi, in terms of the cultural policy in Europe right now?
I hope it sustains. I hope it improves. I wish to involve new visions and new change makers who are aware of the present today, to offer credibility as well, and also to offer a place for academic or non-academic new competencies, to avoid monopolization or censorship, which is very, very important, to offer protection to the global artistic environment, starting from Europe and going internationally. I stop here and I propose an international artist passport inspired from the passport talent in France, and it could be linked to a similar economical artistic French model like the intermittence du spectacle, that gives a benefit in return to the European Union treasury and the artist as well. So everyone gonna carry each other to provide also protection and to secure the right of freedom of speech and the freedom of mobility, which means so much to me. A fixed monthly salary could be amazing for artists. It's a win-win situation. I think it's gonna nourish the economy, and it's gonna avoid a possible unemployment crisis. The project seems big, but I think under the European right hands it can work. They can manage it. Simply artists pay taxes to secure their own salary and to carry each other. So yeah, this is the idea. That's what I expect from this.
Thank you. You made important points, and I would like to, Michael Wimmer, finally ask, what kind of expectations would you have, Michael Wimmer?
For me, it would be a plea to have a more broader view on cultural policy. It's more than funding and supporting artists and cultural institutions. We are maybe stepping in an era of the spectator. Nobody would say education policy is just about teachers. Nobody would say health policy is just about doctors. So I would very much plea for a cultural policy which is not about a few millions of artists, but it's about 500 million European citizens. It would be about the new involvement of the spectator in the cultural business, producing, as was already said, cultural publics where the full diversity of what makes the European continent so important could be represented. And just two words to the need to rethink mobility when the consequences of the pandemic wouldn't be gone next year, and also to rethink technology. And I think this meeting is about, but let us think that each wave of technology has massively influenced the cultural sector as a whole, starting with the steam machine, radio, TV, disc, and so it's about digitalization at the moment. We should be aware that a massive transformation of the cultural sector is on the way.
Absolutely true. Thank you so much for some really important points we're going to discuss further on. And I wanted just to mention that Abdullah Minyawi and Michael Wimmer will also join us later within the deep dives. So thanks for this first important aspects in the context of our discussions today to all who have been involved. Thank you to Sabine Verheyen, Viviane Hoffmann, Abdullah Minyawi and Michael Wimmer. We now come to the question culture in Europe, a question of solidarity, question mark. For this, I welcome politicians and cultural workers. We have first of all invited two artists to share their very personal experiences with us at this point. Anka Poterascu and Pamela Toscano both will also take part later during the deep dives. A warm welcome to you both. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, hello. And I really welcome Irmgard Maria Fellner. She's Deputy Director General for Culture and Communication of the Federal Foreign Office here in Germany. Hello.
Hello, everyone. Pleased to be here today.
I would just briefly introduce to you the both artists. Anka Poterascu is founder and director of the Anka Poterascu Gallery and the president of the Romanian Association of Contemporary Art, active since many years promoting Romanian contemporary arts locally and internationally. Since 2015, the association organizes Plantenor Residence 58, one of the first art residences in Romania to invite international artists and curators with the aim of fostering cultural dialogue and awareness. And Pamela Toscano is an actress, author, director and teacher. She studied at the Dramatic Art School in Catania in Italy. She's now working as an assistant director and author. Her interests in particularly performances. Performances. She has defined a personal research that deals with perception in order to carry out projects aimed to enhancing the local cultural heritage through site-specific theatrical installation. And for 7 years she has been working permanently at Zoo Centro Cultures Contemporanées as didactic manager, planning and organizing manager. First of all, we would like to know from you both, Anka and Pamela, how have you experienced the past year within the pandemic in terms of your work, of your cultural work? Who wants to start? Anka, what about you? We can't hear you right now. You seem to be muted. Can you unmute? So maybe. Yeah, now we.
No. Okay.
Now we hear.
So you can hear me now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Great.
So for us it was a challenge, a big challenge, like for all of us from Europe. We had a lockdown for 3 months, from March to June. And one of the most important things that we learned in this pandemic, or what I've learned in this pandemic, is the value of solidarity. So I think it's very important, and I believe in this European solidarity. And since last year, we are part of the European Alliance of Academies in Berlin. So for us, it's very important to feel that we have partners in Europe, that we can think about collaboration and start working for projects together.
Mm-hmm. How good does it work? Actually, in
it came unexpected.
Life.
So this brings hope, because this alliance came unexpected. So we were invited to be part of this alliance before the pandemic, to be in the crisis of the pandemic. So for us was now we are working with some members from the alliance for some, to apply for some European projects, to do projects together, collaboration, artist residencies, to invite curators, to exchange artists and curators between organizations. So I think this is very important.
Mm-hmm. Such a network. So let's ask Pamela Toscano about her experiences within the pandemic, especially. Pamela.
Well, Thank you for asking. During the pandemic, the most frightening sensation to me was what is the role of artist of right now? It's like the feeling of being forgotten and the feeling that we have not anymore a social role. Like going back in the past, you know, theater and music and dance, all the performance that we do alive during a social ritual collective has the role to transform way of thinking, way of feeling, and we can give a service to society. But during the pandemic, it's like that this role is being forgotten, but this is a way to underline that the problem already exists, that our role is precarious. And I think that at the same time, we as artists should ask to us why our role is not the same anymore. What could we do to support ourselves in this sense? Not only asking support and solidarity from Europe or from our government, in the sense that if this is happening, is also because we probably forget that we have to serve society. And for this reason, I think that we could again try to take on our shoulders some issues like trying to be a vehicle of very important topics, not only in our field, in artistic field, but of course about human rights, about science, about climate, about biology, because I think that artistic languages can be more direct and more empathic, and that we could reach the goal to reach people in a better way, really. So it's both the solidarity and the support and the role. We both have to do something in this direction. This is what I think.
And to question actually the task you have and what your role can be in society, what kind of potential it has. Got Maria Fellner, what's your reaction towards what we just heard here from the two artists? What main questions and issues are very important to you personally?
Yeah. Well, in a pandemic, so to say, in a crisis situation, we are bereft of many things that we are used to, and we have to unfold our inner self and need to give access to our deepest sources of energy. And that is exactly what an artist is doing in a society. While we all focus on a survival mode, we have to make sure that we do not lose sight of what is important. That is supporting democracy, allowing our society to focus on the future. And not lose time and energy for little details, but really aim for the bigger thing, cohesion, solidarity, respect for the individual, and the big causes that are enshrined also in many of our initial papers, like our German Constitution, the United Nations Declaration, etc., etc. So focus on human rights and show active solidarity. And artists have proven in the pandemic that they are so much more ahead of our normal lifestyle. They are so innovative and have raised so many important questions and eventually have given us like a supportive role in focusing on the really important matters. So we have to be really grateful to all the artists.
Which sounds really great. And Anka, you just told us really important things about solidarity you already felt. How can the culture scene recover after all? What kind of expectations, Anka, do you have?
So I think that we need funding. I'm sorry to say that because during the pandemic, I will say in the next talk, the art galleries did not have any support from the government. So I think it was dramatic for us to survive, and the local government, they didn't give us any support. So for us, it's important to have public funding, to have private investment in the cultural and creative industries.
Same question to Pamela, maybe connected with the thought, how can the cultural scene not only recover but rediscover, as you already mentioned, and reinvent itself after the crisis?
Well, I think that is a big challenge, but to be concrete, I think that we should try to face the problem of disequality in the different territorials, in different countries, because there are too many disadvantaged areas from geographical, economical, job opportunities, professional development. There are too many differences between South and North of Europe and inside the States. And I think that European culture should also try to change some strategies in using funds, because I'm sorry to say it, but I have to. When so many funds are given to local institutions and local regions, the way to decide how to invest this money is too often concerned with political, local, narrow-minded interests and decision. So maybe as creative workers, we should have the access more directly with funds and with opportunities in a more homogeneous way.
Which would be a very practical tool. Pamela, thank you to this point. Got Maria Fellner, what do you react to this? Would you think this would be possible? What kind of potential do you see in those points?
Well, we as public servants are in a dialogue on the European level to carry out our politicians' wishes in terms of getting done a support package, like a huge stimulus that is not only for the economic side, but also for a cultural side. And as State Minister Müntefering has proposed sometimes already, there is need for a cultural package, and it has to be a joint initiative. And we do a lot of supporting and kind of flanking of this initiative in order to help cultural actors carry on and survive the crisis. Because after the pandemic, we would like to have a landscape of culture as big in terms of variety and resilience and energy as we had it before, and even more so probably with the lessons learned from the pandemic. It could be even more a quantum leap in flexibility and get things done on a cultural level with the help of solidarity on a European level.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think flexibility is something very important in this case. Thank you, Irmgard Maria Fellner. Thank you, Anka Poterascu and Pamela Toscano. And well, we are going now splitting up into a wide variety of groups and going on within our deep dive. Welcome back to the plenary. Hello and welcome everybody. I hope you had an exciting exchange so far. Well, we have collected various cultural contributions for today's meeting to present to you, and we're going to start, for example, with a project called Fluid. Fluid is a cooperation between the Julia Hülsmann Quartet and the Norwegian musician Hildegunn Øiseth, commissioned by Europe Takes Part. Just get an impression of those wonderful musicians. Well, great music, great video by Julia Hülsmann Quartet and Hildegunn Øiseth. And I'm sure you realized that Hildegunn Øiseth focused on the traditional Norwegian instrument called bukkehorn, made from the horn of a goat. Well, we now want to talk about a future European cultural policy, and I'm very pleased that we have two politicians from Portugal and from France. The French Minister of Culture, Roselyne Bachelot, is with us. Bonjour, Roselyne Bachelot. And from Portugal, we have Nuno Autor Silva, Secretary of State for Cinema, Audio, Visual and Media. Bom dias. Hi to everyone. And we are very happy, of course, about your participation. We will now first hear some statements from the two politicians, and then two cultural practitioners will interview the politicians, and those are Michael Lond, as you can see on the screen, director of the interdisciplinary arts platform Electron, and Fernando Garcia Dori, now coordinating the European Network for Rural Arts Confederacy of Villages. Both of them will also join us later in the deep dives. But first of all, we are looking forward to hearing the thoughts of the two politicians on a European cultural policy of the future. We would like to know how each of the politicians would integrate the priority areas discussed previously, means security, free spaces, society, into their personal vision of a common European cultural policy. I would first ask the French Minister of Culture for her thoughts on this. Please, Roselyne Bachelot. And I just get a message that she isn't ready yet, which is absolutely fine with us. Don't worry, Madame Bachelot. We will just give the microphone now to Nuno Artur Silva, Secretary of State. Please, we are very curious to listen to you.
Dear Michel Müntefering, dear Roselyne Bachelot, dear participants, I would like to start by congratulating the German authorities on the organization of this summit, a very dynamic one where such important topics for the future of our culture and creative sector are being discussed by a vast array of stakeholders. I thank Minister Michel Müntefering for the invitation and for this initiative. I also take this opportunity to address a supporting word to my French colleague, dear Roselyne. I'm glad to see you are well and recovered. As you all know, Portugal is currently holding the presidency of the Council of the EU, and the current pandemic situation has a strong negative impact on cultural and creative sectors, and in particular on cultural events, such as those within the EU presidency of the Council, as the German authorities know. Culture and creative industries are one of the most impacted sectors by COVID-19 pandemic. The Portuguese presidency has decided since day one to put on top of the agenda the recovery, resilience and sustainability of culture and creative sectors. As ministers of culture, we have a leading responsibility towards these sectors. We face similar challenges. We ought to seek the best possible coordination regarding the supporting measures and policy responses. Culture, as it has been highlighted during several interventions in this summit, remains in the realm of member states' competencies. We know that the diversity of our 27 cultures is one of the stronger assets of the European project. The richness of the European cultural heritage is not the sum of our 27 cultures, but its differentiated identity within a shared history. In fact, each country has its own specific economic and political factors, providing different contexts for creative workers. But we all share a common vision: culture as a central pillar of social cohesion and economic development. At the Council, the Ministers of Culture have been further discussing and fostering in-depth discussions over a vast array of topics that impact on the daily lives of culture and creative professionals. Coordinated frameworks of action have also been adopted. The Council Work Plan for Culture to 2019-2022 is a strategic document that underpins several policy dimensions where member states agree to further develop within the current architecture of the European Union. This plan emerges from the new European Agenda for Culture and is set of common priorities, namely sustainability in culture heritage, cohesion and well-being, a supporting ecosystem for artists and cultural and creative sectors, as well as gender equality and international cultural relations. The Portuguese presidency also took these priorities in the agenda by namely placing cultural heritage, gender equality and social cohesion on top of our working plan. We will promote a conference dedicated to culture, cohesion and social impact during this next week, to which I would like to invite you all. Several important topics will be discussed, such as the importance of culture to citizens' health, a topic that has nowadays a stronger relevance. And yesterday, we concluded a conference dedicated to culture and democracy, addressing very important topics for our shared future. Our democracies face common threats. We need to work closer than ever to promote and protect the European project. A word must be dedicated to the next generation EU and the recovery of the EU. In the realm of culture, the Recovery and Resilience Facility is an amazing opportunity for culture and creative sectors under the agreed dimensions at the European level, namely the digital one. It is an opportunity to promote inclusiveness, broader audiences, safeguard and enhance our cultural heritage. I'm certain we will have further opportunities to discuss these and other topics during the following panel. So I would like to wish you all a very good conference. The Portuguese presidency is, allow me to repeat myself, strongly committed with the recovery and resilience of the culture and creative sectors. This is our top priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nuno Artur Silva from Portugal. And Madame Bachelot, thanks for being with us. Bonjour.
Bonjour à vous, bonjour à tous et à toutes. Je suis vraiment ravie d'être avec vous aujourd'hui et je veux remercier chaleureusement Michel Müntefering pour son invitation. Évidemment, tout le monde regrette que cet échange ait lieu en visioconférence, mais je voudrais partager avec vous ma conviction que ce dont ont besoin les artistes, les acteurs du culturel, c'est avant tout de la situation des États, mais aussi du soutien de l'Union européenne. Bon, je n'ai pas besoin de rappeler combien le secteur culturel a été touché par la crise sanitaire. En France, la baisse du chiffre d'affaires dans les secteurs de la culture et des médias liés à la crise sanitaire est évaluée à 22,3 milliards d'euros pour un chiffre d'affaires estimé à 66,8 milliards en 2020, soit une baisse de 25% par rapport au chiffre d'affaires de 2019. Pour les seuls secteurs marchands, les recettes ont chuté de 11 milliards d'euros par rapport à 2019, une baisse de 12%, les secteurs les plus touchés étant ceux du spectacle vivant, du patrimoine, du cinéma. Ah oui, il faut traduire, pardon.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure for me to be here with you today, and I'd like to extend my deepest gratitude to the Minister, Mrs. Müntefering, for inviting me. Even though we are meeting remotely, unfortunately, let me underline the fact that what artists and cultural actors need the most today is, above all, the support of states and the support of the. Needless to say, the cultural sector has been hit hard by the pandemic. In France, there has been a 22.3 billion euro drop in the turnover of the cultural and media sectors as a result of the pandemic. The turnover stands at 66.8 billion euros in 2020, which is a 25% decrease in turnover compared to 2019. For the commercial sectors alone, revenues have dropped by 11 billion euros compared to 2019, and the hardest hit sectors have been the performing arts, heritage and cinema.
Alors il faut le dire et le reconnaître, la réponse européenne, avec un engagement financier inédit dans le cadre du plan de relance post-Covid, a été à la hauteur de l'enjeu grâce à la mobilisation de la Commission, du Conseil et du Parlement européen. Il nous faut saluer cet effort inédit qui participe d'une politique culturelle européenne ambitieuse au service des professionnels de la culture et de leurs projets. Dès les premiers jours de la crise, le gouvernement français a annoncé un plan de relance de 100 milliards d'euros, dont 2 milliards affectés à la culture. Ce plan de relance français est alimenté par 40 milliards d'euros provenant du plan de relance européen, mais malgré tous nos efforts, le secteur culturel sortira extrêmement fragilisé de cette crise. Il est fondamental que les avancées européennes de ces dernières années ne soient pas remises en cause.
Europe, with its unprecedented post-COVID recovery plan, rose to the challenge as a result of the mobilization of the Commission, the Council, and the European Parliament. It is a laudable effort fully in line with the ambitious European cultural policy that we need to serve cultural professionals and their projects. From the very onset, the French government announced a 100 billion euro recovery plan, including 2 billion euros for culture. Of these 100 billion euros, 40 will come from the European recovery plan. But in spite of our best efforts, the crisis will deal a severe blow to the cultural sector, which is why it is fundamental to preserve the European achievements of these past few years.
Je pense notamment à la directive sur le droit d'auteur qui a été adoptée en 2019, à son article 17, qui doit conduire à un meilleur partage de valeur entre les plateformes de partage de contenu et les créateurs, en raison de l'exploitation en ligne de leurs œuvres. La philosophie et l'équilibre de la directive sur ce sujet, ça a déjà fait couler beaucoup d'encre. Cet équilibre doit être respecté, j'y suis particulièrement sensible. Les projets de règlement sur les services et les marchés numériques en cours de discussion permettront une plus grande régulation des plateformes. Je considère cela crucial. Il est très important que les acquis de la directive sur le droit d'auteur en matière de responsabilité des plateformes ne soient pas remis en cause à l'occasion de cette négociation. Il est important aussi que nous avancions vers la mise en place d'une véritable supervision de la fonction de modération des plateformes, qu'elles portent sur des contenus licites ou sur d'autres types de contenus qu'elles choisiraient d'interdire. Nous devons permettre aussi à tous nos acteurs du livre, du cinéma, de l'audiovisuel, de pouvoir tirer pleinement profit des opportunités offertes par les nouvelles formes de diffusion numérique.
And let me mention the directive on copyright, which was adopted back in 2019, including Article 17, that needs to ensure better value sharing between online content platforms and creators when their work is consumed online. We know that there has been much controversy about the philosophy and the balance struck by the directive, but these need to be abided by, and it is a matter very dear to me. I would also like to mention the draft regulations on digital services and markets, which is currently being discussed and which will allow us to better regulate platforms. I consider it extremely important that the progress achieved by the copyright directive regarding the accountability of platforms should not be unraveled on the occasion of this negotiation. It is also important for us to make headways in implementing a system to better oversee the monitoring feature of platforms, whether it is with unlawful content or any other type of content that they may choose to ban. And finally, we also need to allow all stakeholders of the book, cinema and audiovisual sectors to fully benefit from the opportunities offered by all these new forms of digital dissemination.
Mais notre responsabilité est aussi d'aller plus loin encore dans la construction de cette Europe de la culture que j'appelle de mes voeux. Ainsi, nous devons affirmer notre souveraineté culturelle et veiller à la protection des actifs culturels stratégiques que l'Europe a su construire au fil des décennies. Je pense par exemple au catalogue de films ou au réseau de salles de cinéma bâtis avec l'aide des pouvoirs publics pour favoriser la connaissance et la diffusion des œuvres européennes. Nous devons réfléchir ensemble, au niveau européen, pour préserver ces actifs qui sont au cœur de l'identité européenne dans toute sa diversité.
Our responsibility is to go even further in building this Europe of culture that I call for. We need to assert our cultural sovereignty, and we need to protect the strategic cultural assets that Europe has built over the past few decades. I'd like to mention, for example, the catalogs of movies or the networks of movie theaters built by state authorities in order to increase the knowledge and dissemination of European works of art. We need to think together at the European level to protect these assets that lie at the very heart of the European identity in all its diversity.
Thank you so much. At this point, dear Rosalind Bachelot, we are running out of time. I'm very sorry for this, but I think you mentioned very important things by now. So let's give the artist the opportunity to raise some questions. Maike Lond, I mentioned her and you will see her on the screen. She's artistic director of Elektron in Estonia. She's a freelance artist, and Dramatalk Elektron is a transdisciplinary platform dedicated to connecting performing arts, technology, and science. Elektron has been developing an online platform for performing arts and its audiences. And also Fernando Garcia Dori, he is an artist and agroecologist, very interesting combination, who pioneered art in the rural context with projects from microorganisms and social systems, and from traditional art languages drawing to collaborative agroecological projects. He has been developing some platforms inland, for instance, a collaborative cultural platform in rural regions in Spain, and he is now coordinating the European Network for Rural Arts Confederacy of Villages. So, Mike, I'm very curious to listen to your questions. Maybe some points that seem to be very important to you in terms of a future of a European common cultural policy.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I would like to, support Portugal for ending up in such a position, responsible position during this hard state of emergencies and crisis. It's very daring, and I hope you succeed well in this position. And regarding that, I think it's been very interesting to hear all the politicians also before talking about how the finances will come. But I've been 15 years freelancer, and my main income has been basically from touring in Europe from festival to festival. So, and you know, I am thousands of people, and these thousands of people have had no income already for 1.5 years. My interest in this sense is that how do you see this support packages and extra money that goes to Creative Europe? How do you see how this will end up in actually benefiting or helping the artists to continue their work. Because I think the main problem for me with European cultural support systems, and also my fear for common cultural policy, would be that it is so extremely bureaucratic and top-down system that there are so many middle people, but yet we always talk about the artist and art. So how do you have a vision how to make this process less bureaucratic, and that the finances actually reach the people who create the content, who create the art and artworks?
This is something Pamela Toscano also mentioned when she was talking here within the summit. Thank you, Maike. I think Nuno Artur Silva, he talked about supporting economical system as well. So I wonder how the politicians want to establish something like this. Let's but first listen to the question Fernando Garcia Dori has, and then we let answer the politicians. So Fernando, go ahead with your question.
Thank you so much. Thank you for organizing this wonderful summit, and thanks a lot for our dear ministers to take the time to be with us as representatives somehow of a civil society in Europe that, as Mike was noting, are only not the very ground of culture, no, the artists on the ground, but also connecting with the audiences. In this case, speaking on behalf of context, a context very much suffering of the difficulty of being at the same level than the urban audiences. So how could you see that we could improve in inclusivity in terms of access to the digital technologies, as well as the infrastructure itself in Europe for connectivity, and how could we harmonize common agricultural policies as the specific Leader Plus initiative and rural development initiative with cultural policies, no? To try to bring them together and to make a clear commitment and support to the importance of the rural communities that are at the core of the European identity, the landscapes, the culture, and at these times also at the forefront of the environmental crisis as well, in terms of how climate change will affect rural areas and so on.
Thank you, Fernando. So I think we have two very significant points. We can't discuss it right now, but very briefly, Nuno Artur Silva, supporting economical systems for artists. What kind of vision do you have? In 2 minutes, not more. We can't hear you right now. I think you have to unmute you. Yeah, great. Now, yes.
Okay. So our goal is to, we would say that we need to put the money that comes from Europe directly from Brussels to the places where cultural action is needed, and that means each and every one of the cinemas and theaters and cultural places. We need to put this network to function so that the money can spread very fast directly from the source to the agents in the ground. That's our main purpose. And it's very important also the idea of digitalization, because we need to give immediate content to everybody everywhere and to put things to work. It's very important in this context, as I would strongly support the words of Roselyne Bachelot when she talked about the importance of the two directives, the rights director, the copyrights directive and the audiovisual directive. We strongly have an opportunity to defend European diversity, cultural diversity, and to very strongly put the needs for the new platforms, the multinational platforms, to have accountability and to give place to European content. That is absolutely needed, and we strongly support this action. And basically, that's it.
Okay, so let's just listen to the answer of Roselyne Bachelot in terms of communal policy bringing together with European goals. How does that work? What do you think? What kind of infrastructure do we need for it? I think my question has to be translated into French right now. Okay, Roselyne Bachelot doesn't seem to hear us right now. So is there something you want to add, Maike and Fernando? Expectations? Maike?
Yeah, I think when Rosalind was speaking about the copyright and platforms, I think you're referring to big corporational platforms like YouTube, Facebook, and so on. And I agree that these have been basically our only tools for artists to use in these times, except for some, small underground alternative development, such as our Electron stage, for example. So I think before all kind of copyright question, I think we should come how to build together really useful tools, digital tools for artists, for audiences, and how to bring them together. Because you can't leave audience behind the screen alone, and you cannot leave the artist working alone on Facebook Live. This doesn't work. And I think we should instead not concentrate on so much on these big platforms, but create alternative European platform with European knowledge and technological developments.
Yes, absolutely. Fernando, anything you want to add?
Well, the last remark would be: we are now in a historical opportunity to also make use of these very necessary emergency funds to just not continue with business as usual in terms of how art happens or how culture happens. What I mean is that we need to transform as well the traditional way of understanding culture as something created, not just in the centers by an elite for the people. No, I think it's time to also start to establish participatory mechanisms that create a bottom-up culture of producing a culture, if I can say. So in that sense, I hope we are ambitious enough to make this necessary transition to other models of cultural production as well, engaging with the citizens.
This is true. So thank you for those inputs of you all. Thank you to Roselyne Bachelot, to Nuno Artos Silva, and to Michael Land and Fernando Garcia Dori. You have now the opportunity to deepen exactly those topics within the deep dives. Hello again, everybody. We would now like to present another cultural highlight within the summit. Let me introduce to you Elias Adam. Elias Adam and his performance, It's Ophelia Bitch, called a desktop performance. Elias Adam is a director, he's dramaturg, a performer, comes from Greece. His works were shown in many countries. It's Ophelia Bitch by Elias Adam was commissioned by Common Lab, Goethe-Institut, Excellency Initiative by Goethe-Institut Thessaloniki Artbox in collaboration with TIFF Hell Expo. It was first presented in the context of State of the Arts Freiraum Festival 2020. And here it is.
But second, even though the police were expecting this situation, we can see that Floyd has not acted violently. And third, that he seems to already be in distress. 6 minutes into the arrest, the two officers move Floyd back to the vehicle. As the officers approach the car, you can see Floyd onto the ground. According to the criminal complaints filed against the officers,
The drepeste de malakjes. De drepeste de malakjes.
but she wasn't. Taylor's boyfriend.
To do 10:00 Ciprolex. Zoom, masturbate to my TikTok videos, scroll Facebook, upload nude at OnlyFans, zoom. 14:00 Zenny 0.5 milligrams. Depression nap. Work. Work, bitch. Distressed face vomiting, work. Work, 19:00 cry, scream, shout to my therapist, work. 23:30 Zenny 1.5 milligrams. Sleep and never wake up. What you just made me do.
There's fennel for you and collab vines. There's rue for you, and here's some for me. We make holy hairbrace of Sundays. Oh, you must wear your rue with a difference. There is a daisy. I would give you some violets, but the withered all. Oh, I die. I cannot live to hear the news. Tell them, with the occurrence more and less which have solicited, the rest is silence. The last line is Hamlet's. I stole it. I'm a thief. I'm a criminal.
Πώς ήταν?
Ξέρω, μην μου κάνεις έτσι. Ήταν αργό.
Ποιο?
Μου κάνεις έτσι.
Δεν ξέρω, τι να έκανα κι εγώ. Δεν έχει σημασία.
It's Ophelia Bitch, an intervention by Elias Adam. Well, as you might know, there is a huge number of platforms in the European arts and cultural field. They vary in what they do and what they support, fund international projects, promote mobility, for instance, and residencies, reach new worldwide audiences, etc. Some are driven by people and collectives who have been examining the pulse of technology by means of art, science, the beginning of the internet, while others answered to immediate needs of artists in the times of pandemic. And as it is the case with Kulturama, although they flourished, we have to say their future might even be uncertain. Kulturama seems only to be a tool for the moment. The EU Summit asked Berlin-based filmmaker Marian Engel to explore challenges and opportunities, and we are going to watch an almost 6 minutes video that could nourish our discussions in this third block.
The situation for artists, for people who work in the field of culture is a very difficult situation during the times of the pandemic. The possibilities to work, to get into contact with public is very much reduced. Kulturama Digital has two parts. One part is the live part, where every artist can upload a live stream. You can access it through Kulturama and go to the platform where the live stream is presented. The second part is an online archive or library where digital cultural projects, art projects can be uploaded and stay there so that the worldwide public can see it at any time they want.
The European Hub for Civic Engagement is a digital infrastructure for the European civil society. So here they shall find new and deeper networks, helpful resources for their everyday work, and one day even funding opportunities or creative civic tech tools. We target the European civil society, which is a very wide field. We consider artists, practitioners from the creative sector to be part of it as much as people working for human rights, the environment, or investigative journalists. First, I believe that arts and culture practitioners always mirror to us what is going on and what could be going on. We ask for their challenges, we ask for their demands, and then we go into a co-development process with designers and programmers to transfer this into actual solutions.
The EMAP is a consortium of 11 media art organizations. It's one of the 15 European cultural platforms supported by Creative Europe. And we are focusing here on media art, especially on the context of science, technology and art. We are based in the digital realm, so it is a bit in our DNA that we are used to work digitally a lot. Within the platform funding, Creative Europe created an awesome genius tool which we are using in the European Media Art Platform because our members can work with global invoice, meaning all of our members only present one invoice to us, where they prove that they did the production, they hosted the residency, they presented the work. If you want to have creativity, you need flexibility, and this is what government and decision makers have to understand. I think our societies, if they want to go further on in the digital realm, we have to be more flexible and less bureaucratic.
Sooner is a video-on-demand service that is operated by Content Scope, a company that's a joint venture of a French and a German company. There's an abundance of great European films, and with Sooner we are still at the point where a filmmaker can do its work uninfluenced by a lot of economical restraints or influences. What we try to do is give the European and international creative scene a space where they can showcase their work, catering to an audience that's very interested in these kind of works.
There is a need of reconsidering the function of arts. Artists can make a difference. They are really working on finding ways for a better future. And I see really the urge to change our society, to create awareness of what we are getting into. And that means for a big part technology itself, and Corona was just a speed up of what was happening anyways. So it's even more urgent now that we think about which is the world we want to live in the future.
Don't stick to the past, but stick to what you are experiencing right now, because I mean, you will most likely realize that your experiences as you have them now and that are shared by millions of others who are not creative are valid enough to be moved into the next project that you have in mind.
Digital platforms in times of the pandemic played a very important role to bring artists and actors of the creative sector together. So I think it's the task today to adapt very fast these kind of platforms to the needs of the artists and of the participants.
We should build alliances, we should cooperate more, we should build networks and practice solidarity, which is a European value.
Well, some thoughts about digital platforms within the European Union. Welcome back to the third and last plenary. Dear audience, we would now like to address the issue of new European digital spaces for culture, and State Minister Michel Müntefering is going to give us an input followed by a video message of Dario Franceschini, Italian Minister of Culture. But first, Michel Müntefering.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues in the digital world, in my opening statement, I referred to a digital collage consisting of 5,000 small pictures. in its complexity, it raises more questions than answers if you look at it. Today, I think it was the other way round. Together we have created a clearer picture of the digital landscape and its vast opportunities. We saw a lot of great examples and heard important ideas. And before handing over to our last panel, I would like to highlight in short 3 points which have come up in the conference today. First, the future of arts and artists in our future digital world. We have been talking about our common goals and the digital cultural space because it is a necessity, because it's a reality, because European artists and cultural institutions want and should be part of it. However, digitization is no end in itself. A European digital space must be a common good. It must serve the democratic public. How we will deal with digitization will have a big impact on how our democracies will develop. For sure, more aid is needed in support of culture and creativity, both to protect artists from the consequences of the crisis in the short term, but also to provide assistance and resources to seize the opportunities in the long term. My conviction is the European Recovery Fund and the Green Deal must be complemented by a cultural deal for the future of Europe. Second, the shaping power of digital art and content for our European societies. Digital transformation paves the way for innovative and creative ideas. And it also offers new opportunities to trigger transnational cooperation. We have been talking about creating a European public sphere for a long time. Now may be the time when this vision becomes a reality. Digitization has reduced and will continue to reduce barriers to work together beyond borders. But if we really want to make Europe grow together, we must make sure it is no privilege of an urban elite. Digitization gives us the chance to finally create a common understanding and awareness of Europe amongst its civil societies. So let's seize the chance and facilitate projects such as the European Cultural Hub, which enables artists to develop and implement ideas that reach out and inspire a broad European public. Last but not least, the European culture digital sphere and its relations to the world. Digital art can be accessed worldwide without borders of time and space. This is a great thing, and it helps us to build up new networks between civil societies in Europe and worldwide. Just think of scientists working together to develop vaccines or climate experts joining their efforts to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. All of this makes the transnational cooperation approach of international cultural policy so important. But if we want to make a difference, we must speak up as Europeans. Digitization can help us in this regard. It can facilitate communication and cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, our participation today shows that we are willing to take our place at the table. Thank you so much for your input and your dedication and the discussions, and please join me in thanking the organizers of this conference, the Goethe-Institut and the Progressive Zentrum. Without their great engagement, this interesting conference would not have been possible. And now I'm really looking forward to the concluding discussion of our conference, Europe Takes Part, and the floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, first of all, I would like to thank Minister Müntefering, dear Michel, for the opportunity to join this timely discussion on digital cultural policy and the role of common European cultural policy. The pandemic crisis affecting our society, economy and lifestyle hits the cultural and creative sectors very hard, but it's also demonstrated the crucial role of culture for the resilience of our society. Italy is determined to place culture at the heart of the international agenda, starting from the first G7 Culture Ministerial in 2017. Now, as G20 chair, we are convening the first ever G20 Culture Ministerial meeting focused on culture and cultural heritage as drivers for sustainable and inclusive growth and for climate action. The cultural and creative sectors are increasingly engaging with the digital environment. Digitalization is changing the way we produce, we preserve, and most recently, we enjoy culture on global scale. This is a new frontier of cultural experience, with huge economic repercussion. The giants of tech are well aware of this opportunity and they are making strides. We, as policymakers, must see the positive elements of these trends and be aware of the risks. In Italy, we are developing the digital platform It's Art to enable artists to present their performances and live show to a broad digital audience. It will be launched at the end of May. It's Art will be a digital platform which you will launch on your mobile device or smart TV, offering subscribers content. A virtual stage opens the world, allowing people to enjoy Italian culture wherever they are. Both the traditional public and new audiences will enjoy our opera, theater, dance, music, and all forms of art. I am convinced that these platforms will contribute to the sustainability of the cultural and creative sectors. At the last meeting of the Council of the EU, I suggested to Commissioner Gabriel that the European Union could develop such a platform at European level too. At the same time, the digital revolution generates big challenges. For example, ownership and copyright, working conditions, the role of artificial intelligence in the creative process, platform regulation. We have to remain watchful and develop the appropriate legislative tools. In addition, cultural employment often means irregular and fragile working conditions, uncertainty, and in most cases, no social security. We must focus on protecting the weak and the small players in the culture world. Dear friends, the digital environment needs to be a service to our public's prosperity and well-being, not the other way around. Culture is key if we want to rethink the rules of the game. Communicating and addressing digital challenges, we can develop a new digital humanism. Italy has always been calling for the full recognition of the key role that culture plays in our common European project. We need extraordinary investments at local, national and European level to enable artists, creatives and cultural professionals and operators to fully unleash their potential for the recovery. More than ever, culture has a central role in building a more just, green and digital Europe. An opportunity is being offered by the Conference of the Future of Europe, which finds culture in the front line. Culture is key to our common European future, restoring confidence and hope at all. Thank you very much. Grazie a tutti.
Sì, grazie a Dario Franceschini, Italian Minister of Culture. Yeah, dear audience, we are now looking for the last panel, and we are of course looking forward to your participation via chat with questions, thoughts, comments, remarks. Co-moderator is Alexander Tam. You just see him on the screen. Hello, Alex. And he will care of the chat. Alex, thank you for this. I'm curious what appears there. Fine, fine. So let me now introduce to you the next panelists we have here. A warm welcome to Adriana Moscoso, Director General for Cultural Industries, Intellectual Property and Cooperation, Ministry of Culture and Sport from Spain. Spain. Buenos dias. Then I also welcome Irena Boljuncic-Grasin, Chair of the Trans-Europe Hales Executive Committee Pula in Croatia. We have Vlado Velkov with us. He's artist based in Berlin, Germany, and Anastasia Lemberg-Vova, Kogo Gallery Project Coordinator from Tartu in Estonia. Hello and welcome, everybody. I will now briefly introduce the artists to you, and afterwards we want to hear what kind of experience they have in terms of platforming, of networking, of digital spaces, because all of them have really a wide range of experience in this topic. So Irena works in the independent art scene in Croatia. She has initiated, curated and managed various projects and programs related to performing arts, cultural policy, international collaboration. She led the Trans-Europe Hales startup program for emerging cultural creatives and centers in Balkan and Eastern Europe. Her focus is on developing independent culture, international collaborations, and models of governing in cultural centers. Anastasia Lemberg-Vovas from Kogo Gallery in Tartu, Estonia. She is a socially engaged artist and entrepreneur. She has been an active member of the European Youth Parliament and was participating in international governance. And she founded a non-profit to organize the Destructura project, gathering 150 young professionals in the field of visual and performing arts. They will communicate with experts through a series of knowledge-sharing sessions, perform and analyze of the frameworks governing the art world, and realize cross-border collaborative projects. She's a board member of the non-profit Kogo Gallery. And Vlado Velkov, artist and author, artistic director of the non-profit information platform ArtMap.com and its studio for augmented realities. Okay, so first of all, I would like to ask you, the artists, to give us an impression of your experience. Irena, you're working for more than 20 years, as far as I know, network orientated and digital finally. So just tell us, what did you experience those 20 years?
Yes, I'm here to represent the Trans-European Hales network that gathers more than 100 cultural spaces and independent grassroots cultural centers all around Europe. And we are one of the oldest network in Europe. So we are founded in 1983. So this means that we really passed we had a long way and a long history. And back then, when our pioneers, culture pioneers, made this network, the idea was to share experience, knowledge, and ideas to inspire each other. Of course, during that time, the network grew and passed through many different history changes. And these changes left, for example, abandoned sites all over Europe. So we took them over, we revived them and used them for artistic experimentation. So by the end of the 20th century, the value of these neglected spaces has increased exponentially, which only made us more confident in what we do in our work. And somehow I have a feeling we are again somewhere there, trying to explain how much the physical space is important, no matter the benefits of digital means and digital transformation. So also before the pandemic, we used, of course, the digital means, and in many ways it helped us to operate easier and worldwide, as we are really covering almost all countries in Europe. So yes, we have used this digital in many good ways. For example, as on the website you can find a map with all our centers and their details inside. Lots of resources like publications, researches, they're all on one place, and then everybody can use them. Of course, that's through this digital, we also reached new people, new audiences, and many artists who are working and producing in our centers use and experiment and work with new technologies. And we are really proud of that. But in this time of pandemic, what really happened is that we reached and we extend this usage of digital tools maybe in a way that it's not anymore healthy or good for our society. And this we need to question a lot these days. We believe so in the culture of physical spaces, human connections, and physical contacts. Physical spaces where real connection happens instead of digital spaces when we don't really have that kind of interaction. And of course, that culture and art are so diverse, and in this pandemic situation now we can't look at the digital transformation black and white. There is different influence of digital in different cultural art sectors. Maybe for museums or visual arts, there is many ways they can use the digital tools. But for example, in performing art sector that I also come from, especially from contemporary circus, we are really depending on the content with the audience. We are depending on the experience that audience gave to us and we to them. So it's not really the same thing if you have, for example, an actor that is performing in front of the empty auditorium and this show is streamed live. That energy that comes from that show, it's not the same like the energy and reactions of the public that it's your audience that moment, because it's of course a lot of that, it's also in the improvisation. So now I would say that our venues are closed more than a year. Many of them are also facing financial collapse, and we are asking ourselves, can the independent culture centers financially live from the digital content? And we don't really think that it's possible. Also, how many artists really can live from a digital work? This, of course, doesn't mean that we are not against it or something like that, but we would like to question that it's not so simple and easy to distinguish what is good and what is
Yes.
not. And on the end, just one sentence on the end. So I really believe in power of culture. If culture and art are the change makers and important drivers in societies, then we really need to be careful how we want to develop societies and which direction we will choose.
Thank you, Irena. Yeah, absolutely. We have to face the risks as well and the boundaries of digital spaces, as you mentioned, and we are going to discuss this point. First of all, let's listen to Anastasia, who's going to tell us her experience in terms of platforms, cultural platforms, maybe also risks. So, Anastasia.
Well, my experience with networks and platforms mainly comes from the European Youth Parliament, EYP. I have spent 10 years taking part in events, organizing events, governing basically the NGOs that do it in Russia and Estonia, and also in Berlin for international governance. And that is one side of my background. So I've been actively involved in civil society endeavors and in youth politics. On the other hand, I have also been trained in the arts since the age of 6. I have a BA in fine arts, and I'm still a young artist starting out in that sense. So what I was looking for was an opportunity to combine the two backgrounds, what I learned in the European Youth Parliament and what I learned when basically training in the arts. That's what I'm trying to do with my forum, De Structura, bringing together politicians, experts, and different partners to give an opportunity to young people, because I think when you talk about platforms and networks, really the push and the starting point will come from this newest generation. I'm also here representing the Europe Takes Part workshop, part of which took part in April, and the other part will happen in May. And one of the points we discussed there was very rigid structures and nepotism and certain micropolitics in the art world. And there's very little flexibility for the young generation to get into it and introduce new ideas. This is one of the issues that I would like to tackle with the forum. And once those new ideas and those new ways of creating networks are allowed to thrive, I think the platforms will start popping up. My experience with the European Youth Parliament tells me so. It's just a quick context. It's basically an NGO with branches in 40 different countries. There's more than 500 events around Europe every year. And you really feel part of a family, part of a community. You have a couch surfing group on Facebook. If somebody tells you that they're from EYP in a cafe in a country you've never been to, there's constantly an interest and trust towards this person. So that's the network side, but the platforms we use online are small and different and randomized. So I think before we start talking about the importance of platform, we need to discuss the way we can create a network and how this network would then tailor to its needs in terms of digital communication and platforms.
Thank you so much. Yes, randomized. This is one important point. And the question is how to kind of centralize a network, a European network. But first of all, let's listen to Vlado. Last time I saw you sitting there in front of the lake, Vlado, it was much more sunny. What happened?
Basically, the title of the exhibition that you see in my background is called Das Ruhr-Ding Climate. That means that it is dealing with the topics of climate change. And we see some of them. You can see that I've been grilled in the sun, but at the moment it is raining. I even had the feeling that it was snowing for a few moments. It is really unpredictable. Unpredictable, not only the weather, but also the situation in the exhibition. Therefore, I'm here because I wanted just to give you also a practical example of our situation, because we've been working on that exhibition since 2 years, and it was postponed last year. Now it should open in 10 days, and we still don't know if the exhibition can open or not. It's an international project. There are dozens of artists that participate, that have come really from Australia and Canada, many European countries too. It is a project of Urbane Kunst der Ruhr, a major institution for public art projects in the Ruhr area of Germany. So this lake that you see in my background is called Silbersee. It is really like a marvelous place, not only when the sun is shining. I find it very beautiful now too. And the exhibition takes place really here at the lake. It takes place not only at the sand, but also in the water. There are works in the water, under the water, and visitors are invited also to walk between the works, but also to jump in the water and to swim from artwork to artwork.
But let's come to
if, of course,
your
we can
experience
open. Yes.
In terms of networks and digital networks.
Yes, I'm just mentioning that we have here also two digital works. One of them is an augmented reality work, and the other one is an audio work. And this is the connection to the digital space, because I'm also artistic director of ArtMap, which is like an international platform that we have been working on since 20 years. It's really a platform, an idealistic project that we have started at University of the Arts in Berlin almost 20 years ago. And it has developed also to just to a small Wikipedia for contemporary art, basically. We have been doing this platform without any state funding, without sponsors, without donations. So it is totally independent project, also without advertising. It is focusing on the needs of the society, of the arts, of the art community, basically. So, and it is also representing it in this idealistic way. So there are artists and authors representing their work. There are also galleries and museums representing their work through exhibitions and projects, as it is a collaborative platform. They all have also log in, they can also publish information. So it is also an exchange platform for information, which is existential for us. And this was the issue. We didn't wait for funding because these are things that have to be done. This is the way how artists, this is the way how creatives works. When it is necessary, we have to do it. We don't do it for the money. We don't do it because somebody says that we have to do it. We just do our work because we need it. We need information. We need to share knowledge. And this is what we have been doing so many years. But during working on the platform, we have experienced digitalization in many different ways. Basically, when we started at University of the Arts then, as an educational project, basically digitalization was only on the desktop of the computer. And 10 years later, it was completely different. We had the mobile phones. Then digitalization was already in our hand, in our pocket. It was basically now it is everywhere. You can see it on science and screens everywhere. So now we cannot really divide between digital and physical space. And this is also what happens with the project that we are working on now, because we're extending the platform now through an augmented reality lab that we have been collaborating with the Goethe University in Berlin, which enables the presentations of digital artworks in the public space. We are presenting the first artwork here that, if the exhibition is allowed to open in 10 days, please welcome. You can see it. Otherwise, even if it is not allowed to open, you'll be able to see this digital artwork. So they may be probably the only ones that will be available. But this is a format also. When we speak about innovation, about new digital formats, I think that in the development of art and in the future, also because I'm coming from contemporary art, and this is what I'm focusing and what I'm speaking about now, there have been really quantum jumps, of course, with the introduction of new media, not only of photography, but also of video art. Then we have, of course, internet art, we have virtual reality, but there are also more or less exclusive media. Now, photography, video, they're available for everything, for everybody, and we see that that it is inspiring many people who also start working creatively. And we see the next quantum jump indeed also in augmented reality. This will enable also a lot of exchange in different ways. For example, the next project that we have been working on is group exhibition based on a workshop that we make in Baghdad, in Iraq. So we do it with a workshop and an exhibition with young Iraqi artists. The exhibition will take place in Baghdad, and later on we will present it probably at different locations. So these are through augmented reality, as we all know, this enables the presentations of virtual, of digital works, and melts them with the real, with the physical world. And it is really with few clicks visible everywhere. But yeah, this is just a small.
Many opportunities. Yeah, well,
yes.
We just faced that there's so many platforms and opportunities. We were talking about risks as well, and I would now ask Adriana Moscoso, what role could politics have to provide platforms? Where do you see politics in this content? We can't hear you right now, dear Adriana Moscoso. Yeah.
Yes, sorry.
No, fine.
I was saying hello, buenas tardes from Madrid. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here today with you on behalf of the Spanish government. It is really very interesting to listen to these testimonies of artists and to share these few minutes with them. Well, I think politics are essential in every angle of our lives, and of course on digital challenges and opportunities for culture. Of course, we've been through the last year, we've been staying at home for many months and weeks, and we could be saved from the situation because we were able to access to culture through digital platforms. I think this was a situation that existed, of course, before, and that we have been already focusing on the opportunities and the challenges that digital brings to the creative sector. But with the COVID crisis, all the situation has been much more evident for us. So politics are important because we need to set up a network. We need to set up a rule, a general rule that can provide for a level playing field for creators, for instance, that can assure that there will be a value chain that will arrive to the first person in this chain, that is the artist, the author, that labor rights, social security rights, as Minister Franceschini was referring, authors' rights are guaranteed. I think that creators in the digital network can also create from a much more innovative way, so we can be able to mix much more innovation, technology, culture, the perspective that artists can bring to other sectors of the economy, of the production, is very important. We can all grow with this, and I think this is a very much European perspective that we can bring to our economy and to our continent. So it is important that as Europeans we agree on some basic regulation. We're already working on that.
What kind of basic regulation? Adriana, could you maybe tell us some points about this kind of regulation? What does it need for regulation? What topics?
Well, there are main topics like intellectual property that have been regulated for many years at the European level. Now we have two very important directives that have to be implemented, the Copyright Directive and the Satellite and Cable Directive, for example. We need also to implement the Audiovisual Directive as well, because the audiovisual landscape has been completely changed also with platforms. So all the issues dealing with copyright are a very good example of why do we need to legislate on the digital in this respect. And also I think that we have a challenge with regard. We need to keep balances in the digital market. We need to guarantee that, for instance, cultural diversity is preserved in our Europe, and for that we need to provide opportunities for competition to our small and medium cultural companies that have to be also present in the digital landscape, that need to be able to provide their music, their audiovisual content, their visual arts content with the same conditions and opportunities that big platforms that are already. So I think this is a huge challenge for us as Europeans, and I think it also cultural diversity is at stake in this regard.
Thank you so much, bringing back the European perspective within our talk. So I'm really curious to know what's going on within the chat, dear Alex Tam. What's going on? Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, hi, Shelly. I think everybody is listening quite attentively, and we have one major point coming up from Fernando Garcia Dori. He describes about reconnecting with Earth, reconnecting with neighbors, and he wants to point out the EU Green Deal could come with a degrowth concept also for the cultural system, and there were already 8 people who did a thumb up for his comment. And otherwise, I would like to encourage again others in the chat to write about their networks. We talk here about networks. Share with us your networks in the chat. That's from the chat for now. Shelly, back to you.
Thank you so much. This is a really interesting point, I think, that Fernando made, saying degrowth programs should be connected to those kind of digitalized platforms and cultural topics. Doesn't we have here a kind of contradiction, actually. How should networking and digitalization processes, well, deal with this point of degrowth? Do you have any ideas in this point, Irena? What does it mean for you, especially, to connect to this thought?
If we really believe that with the culture we are changing the local communities, or we are helping them grow, then this question is really important. As I said before, we can use the digital tools to promote some values, but still, I think that culture in general is connected to the local communities, and it cannot be isolated from that. We also know how much influence it has in urban development, in growth of the cities. So I still somehow believe in the physical contact, and I think that it will for sure be different with the new generation that are using the digital much more than maybe we who are older, a little bit older. And this is something that the new generations will totally develop, but we also need to take care about that culture that has inspired us by a contact, by seeing each other, by working and creating together, by traveling. Yes, these are short my thoughts.
So maybe let's ask Anastasia, who's dealing a lot with politics as well and questions of, let's say, society, politics, and arts. What should we discuss about if we talk about cultural European networks? What kind of values and issues?
I think the biggest issue that we face is ridicule. Contemporary art is seen as something inaccessible, elitist, and something that, well, some people would go as far as a waste of funds, to put it very bluntly. One far-right politician presentation comes to mind where he was making fun of untitled works as if the artist had run out of ideas, and this is the art we're promoting today. You often hear people coming into galleries, looking at some artwork, looking at each other and asking, do you get this? The other person saying, not really, let's go get a coffee. So I think the biggest issue when it comes to society and art, especially contemporary art, is a disparity of interest and understanding, because often because of the language. My friend likes to use the word discourse as the most distancing word you can read in the description of an exhibition. But it is true, and it is noticeable that when you go to see an exhibition that requires more investment, that requires more time, and for you to maintain your interest to go through it, you're very much discouraged by the vocabulary used on the walls and certain things that are only accessible to a narrow group of people that are already in the arts. I think that's where society and art fall apart a bit.
And the other thing is, not every artist has the access maybe to the tools he or she has to have in terms of taking part in this digitalized processes. So, Vlado, what kind of needs do artists have concerning digital equipment? And knowledge, of course.
Yes, sure. This is also changing with time. When we started 20 years ago, basically most of the members that we had in our free platform were artists. They didn't have any own personal website, and were taking advantage of our site, of course. Now it's changed later on with the mobile versions, and now there are really new techniques coming. As I mentioned, augmented reality platform would be very helpful. But foremost, I think that there are other issues that are not just about artists. Artists need also to see other artists. Artists need to see other exhibitions, they need to know what is going on. They need also to share knowledge. They want also to present their work in a professional way. And it is difficult for the point that there are still very few platforms that are presenting culture sustainably. Most of the presentation that we see from museums disappear at some point when the exhibition is over. There are really very little platforms that try to keep this contemporary art as cultural heritage of tomorrow. There is no sustainability in the digitalization of culture. So we need a platform that can also archive what is going on. We need a platform that can share free knowledge about culture, about contemporary art, and can reach then probably more people and can have an educational use, as Anastasia mentioned, that it could reach then more people and will be able also to make art also more accessible. But in order to stay more accessible, we need to keep it accessible also for the future. We need indeed to have an archive, not only in Google Arts and Culture. We cannot give it out only to the Silicon Valley companies. We have to take it in our hand, as culture is a huge value that we need to consider indeed also contemporary art as the cultural heritage of tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vlado. Yeah, sustainability is a big, big topic, of course, and cultural heritage of tomorrow, just to keep those two titles and words here within the discussion. Last question to Adriana Moscoso. What is changing through the transfer of cultural policy to transnational European digital space? What would you say? What's the main change about this kind of European perspective? We can't hear you, Adriana Moscoso. Yeah.
Sorry, I forget to take the microphone every time. If I understood your question, I don't think that it's. I think it's complementary. I think that national perspectives of policies for the digital sector, cultural sector in digital, need to be complementary with European policies. There have been many issues raised here. For example, this concern about the fact that about depopulation and how culture can be accessible also in rural areas, and how culture can also help rural areas to keep their activity and to recover even activity that has been lost. We have a big example here in Spain. We are a country with huge spaces of land more and more empty in the center of the country, and we have a specific policy in this ministry called I think Fernando knows it very well, that it's that tries to put the focus on how culture can boost the rural activity. But for that, it is important that the digitalization can also play its role. And there we connect with the digital bridge, that it is also a reality in many of our rural areas. So this, of course, needs to be provided from a very national perspective, but also European perspective, because this problem that I'm raising as an example in Spain, it's happening everywhere in Europe. My answer would be we need to work together in different levels of political action.
Thank you so much. Cooperation. Yes, Adriana Moscoso, thank you. Irena Boljuncic, Krasin, Vlado Velkov, Anastasia Lemberg-Lova. Thank you for your support and your very important ideas. Dear audience, we now come more or less to the end of this summit, and I hope there were some points that were interesting for you personally and for a further discussion. Now I would like to say Katja Kessing, Head of Visitors Program from Goethe-Institut, a few closing words, and afterwards Paulina Fröhlich, Head of the Future of Democracy Program, das Progressive Zentrum.
Yeah, thank you, Shelly, and thank you to everybody who has participated today in the summit and to all the audiences over Europe who have followed the summit over 4 hours, apart from the so-called digital fatigue. A very special thanks goes, of course, to State Minister Michel Müntefering, who has launched this great initiative and who has invited us all for today. And of course, thank you to all the participants, the panelists, the ministers, and the artists who have contributed with very important remarks to today's summit. Thank you, of course, also to Shelly Kupferberg for having us guided through this whole summit and the team of all the moderators. And of course, thank you to our cooperation partner, das Progressive Zentrum. And the last thank goes, of course, to the whole team of the summit who stands beyond this great event. So, how to end and how to resume such summit who has led to such a lot of fruitful discussions, to such multiple perspectives and to such a lot of inputs, remarks and solutions for the arts in Europe in times of pandemic and beyond. It's nearly an impossible task, and also here I would like to quote Dr. Michael Wimmer, who said in the beginning of today's summit, a massive transformation is on its way. And so likewise, we also need massive solutions, discussions, thoughts, and massive more events of that kind. So let me just briefly share with you my very personal lessons learned from today. One is, of course, the arts and artists in Europe need further support in order, as somebody said in the first panel, in order not to be forgotten, and in order also to fulfill the role that art and artists should play in Europe. My second lesson learned is, apart from fundings, artists need to rethink their role within the societies. And this is possible through networking. And as somebody said, I think it was Anka Potarashu, saying we need to see the essential value of solidarity. So networking within the art scenes, I think, is a very special point. Last but not least, I would like to refer also to our host, State Minister Michel Müntefering, but also to all the other politicians that have given very important contributions to today's summit. And this is that European cultural policy should, wherever possible, cooperate beyond national borders. These are just 3 of the lessons learned. I think you have much more. We have just put a brick to the whole picture, and there will be much more discussions following. And with this, I would like to hand over to Paulina Fröhlich and ask her, what are the next steps of our project Europe Takes Part?
Thank you, Katja. Please let me add how much I actually also very much enjoyed the program of today's summit. And I also got 3 things that, out of many, still rang in my head. The first one is the Julia Hülsmann Quartet, an outstanding performance that really spoke to me. The second one is something that Pamela, an artist on our second panel, said today about art. So she was saying that art as a vehicle could be seen as a vehicle for very important societal questions. Thirdly, I was deeply impressed by Nuno Silva, who said that supporting arts and culture practitioners is among the top priorities of the Portuguese EU Council presidency. What a commitment. About the next steps and how this is going on. So the project Europe Takes Part is not over today. Next week, and Anastasia just said that in the last panel, we will be hosting a 2-day workshop with 30 arts and culture practitioners from all over Europe and focus on the question what the joint challenges are. Then we will take a look on the question on how digital solutions could be looking like towards those challenges. Afterwards, we will go into a phase of programming and designing, and by fall 2021, we are looking forward to present to you a first clickable prototype. Thank you very much, each and every single one of you, for your valuable time with us today. Stay tuned, and with that, over to you, Shelly.
Thank you, Paulina. Well, some closing remarks. In the end of this official program, at least, because we have our networking lounge going on afterwards, here's another artistic intervention of Hiroaki Umeda since 2002. Hiroaki Umeda's choreography has been invited around the world. His work goes beyond dance and choreography, sound, video, and lighting design. In recent years, he has also produced installations focusing on physical sensation, and we are going to watch one of those, his full dome dance-based video installation that was awarded. And before we are going to watch it in a few seconds, let me just thank you for this very compact and inspiring afternoon with so many topics and themes. Thank you for taking part, for your time, and thanks to everyone who has supported this summit. Okay, as I said, there's this networking lounge. If you want to meet up there, you're absolutely welcomed after this cultural thing we're going to watch right now. Just click meeting space on your screen and you will enter this lounge and hopefully have interesting talks. Here's Hiroaki Umeda with Intentional Particle. Goodbye to everyone.